Lesson 1.5 is properties of real numbers. Again, this is review, so some of these are going to be familiar to you. We just need to remind you of what the different properties are. So this first property, this whole page is just a reference sheet, but I am going to go over them. I won't go over the bottom as much, but and we are going to write a little bit. So the commutative property of addition means that changing the order of the numbers does not matter. You can add in any order. Now, when subtraction is entered into it, then you cannot do that. Okay, remember if subtraction's entered in, you go in order from left to right. But this just is the order. That's what I think of when I think of commutative property. Same for the commutative property of multiplication. It does not matter the order that you multiply. That's order. Let me see if I can clear this up a little bit. It does not matter the order that you multiply or add, you'll still get the same answer. All right. Now, associative is all about grouping. Okay. So associative property of addition and multiplication is about grouping. Okay. So grouping means that when you take numbers like -3 plus 5 plus 2, -3 plus 5 is in the parentheses, you can switch the parentheses to 5 plus 2. But you can't change the order because the order means that it's commutative property. So just because there's parentheses doesn't necessarily mean that it's associative. You have to look at the order first. Is it commutative? Has the order changed? If the order's changed, it's commutative. If the order hasn't changed, but the parentheses have changed, then it's associative. Okay? The distributive property is taking a number from the outside and multiplying it by both numbers on the inside. You're distributing that outside number to the inside numbers. That's what distributing is. Okay? Identity property for addition and identity property for multiplication. I'm just going to put same number here. This might help. So for addition, anytime you add a number to 0, you're going to get that same number. For multiplication, anytime you multiply a number by 1, you're always going to get that same number. Okay, that's identity. It's like looking in the mirror and seeing yourself. You look at the answer and you see the number that was on the other side. Not 0 and 1, but the other number. Okay. Inverse property of addition means that you're adding two numbers that equal 0. So 6 minus 6, -7 plus 4. -7 minus a -7. Those all result in 0. So inverse property equals 0. Okay. There is an inverse property of multiplication that I'm going to have you come down here. I'm drawing an arrow down here. So we said that the inverse property of addition results in 0, but the inverse property of multiplication results in 1. So if I multiply 9 times 1/9, I'm going to get 1. And I'm going to show you that here. 9 over 1 times 1 over 9 equals 9 over 9, which equals 1. Okay? So there's two inverse properties, even though up here it only says that there's one inverse. There's an inverse of addition that equals 0. There's an inverse of multiplication that equals 1. Okay? And then the last one is the 0 property of multiplication. That means that when you multiply, it equals 0. Okay? So don't get confused between the inverse of addition and the 0 property of multiplication. Those are two different things, okay? All right, let's go ahead and move to page 2. We're going to practice some of these. I have created these to look like the type of questions you're going to see in your textbook, okay? So there's a lot because there's a lot of variations. So if you look at example 1, 2 times x plus 4 equals 2x plus something. We have to figure out what they did here. Yeah, they distributed it, right? So they're distributing the 2 to both terms on the inside. So they have 2x, and then you distribute the 2 to the 4, and you have 8. So the missing part is 8, and the property we used is the distributive property, and you can abbreviate this, okay? Next one, we have 9x plus 5, and they've reversed the order. What's missing? The 9x is missing. That should be 9x. And so what if you're reversing the order, what property is that? It's commutative. If you look, refer to this sheet. Commutative is all about order. Okay? So it reversed the order. So this is the commutative property. Okay? Oh, this is a repeat. Oh. Oh. Okay. So just cross that one out. It's a repeat. This one, I'm not sure what I did. Skip that one. Okay, let's look at example 5. Can somebody tell me what we changed from this to this? Right. Yes. Did we change the order? No, so it's not commutative. We changed the groupings. And so what should go right here? 4. That's the missing part. And so this would be associative. Now, when you abbreviate associative, please abbreviate it to the C. Okay. Just saying. Okay. 6. Missing part. C. Okay. So if C is the missing part, what did we change? What happened? Is the order changed? Are the groupings changed? Yeah, the groupings are changed. So this is also the associative property. What is the difference between example 5 and example 6? Can somebody tell me? Tavon?
The difference is that example 6 is only like letters and variables.
Okay, which represents multiplication, right? So this one is the associative property of multiplication. This one is of addition. Now, on your homework, you do not have to write that part. You just have to write that it's associative property, okay? But I just wanted to show you that because it can be either one. All right. This one's a little bit tricky. What would this missing part be so that when you take 4 plus a number, you get 0? -4. Good. I saw some hand gestures. -4. So in looking at the front, raise your hand if you could tell me. Okay, Noah? Yeah, inverse property. And it is of addition. Again, you don't need to write that part, but just inverse property is okay. All right, so what about 8? What do we multiply by 1/3 to get 1? Yeah, 3. Good. So 3 is the missing part. What property is this one? Well, I'm going to look at the back. Remember, we drew an arrow down here. So it would be the inverse property. This one's of multiplication. Okay. And then the last one, 17 times what equals 0? 0. So 0 is the missing part. What is the, yep, 0 property of multiplication, or just 0 property. Now we didn't do any of the identity properties, so don't forget some of those might be on the homework. Okay. All right. That's probably what these two were supposed to be up here. Okay. So let's look at the next set. You're going to use the indicated property of arithmetic to rewrite each expression. So commutative means order. All we're going to do is we're going to rewrite it by changing the order. So instead of 3 plus 4, we're going to have 4 plus 3. Same thing, you get 7 for both of them. Instead of 3 times 4, we're going to have 4 times 3. Okay? Associative property is groupings or groups. So in this one, we've grouped x plus 7. Now don't change the order because that would be commutative. So we write it as 3 plus x plus 7, but we change the groupings to 3 plus x. Okay? 7ab. We have 7ab. AB is grouped here. Now we're going to group 7a. Okay. Don't change the order. You can't group 7b because those are in two different, they're separated by a. Okay, this right here, let's ignore that because I'll have to go back and change some of these notes. Number 12 is the distributive property. I want everybody to distribute that right now on your own. And then when you're done, check for the answer up here. Okay. And so when it asks for the distributive property, that's what you're going to do. Identity property. Okay, so 0 plus x. This would be like 0 plus 7, okay? So if you're adding x to 0, what's your answer? X. If you're adding 0 to 7, your answer is 7. But since this is a variable, it's going to be x, okay? Over here, let's imagine that x is 7. So if I multiply 7 times 1, this is the identity property, I'm going to get 7. If I multiply x times 1, I'm going to get x, or 1x. And we have the inverse. P plus a negative p equals 0. This would be like 7 plus a negative 7, okay? Which would equal 0. All right, this one right here, this would be like 7 times 1/7. What does that equal? Well, look, it's 7 over 1 times 1 over 7, 7 over 7, which equals 1. 1, there you go. 1, so then this would also equal 1, okay? So lots of different variations. Please refer to these when you're doing your notes. Okay, last section and we're going to be done. Yes. So now all we're doing is we're using those properties and we're actually going to be solving some expressions. We're going to be simplifying expressions. We can't solve, but we can simplify. So if we simplify this right here, there is a negative 1 right here in front of the parenthesis, okay? We're going to have to use the distributive property to distribute that negative 1. We're not distributing the W because whenever you distribute the term that's right in front of the parentheses. The W isn't in front of the parentheses. The negative is. And so anytime you see a negative, it's just a negative 1. So we're going to distribute the negative here. And when we do that, we have W. We didn't work on that, so we're just going to bring it down. Negative 1 times x is negative x, and negative 1 times y is negative y. So this is our answer. And we can't go any further. Those aren't like terms, so we can't combine them in any way. Okay. All right, use the distributive property to do example 16. And when you're done, check up here. Okay. Okay, example 17 is like example 15. You're only distributing the term that's in front of the parentheses. So when you distribute, though, you have to take the sign that's in front of it. So you're actually distributing a negative 3. So you're going to distribute that to the 2n and to the 7. Okay, so I'm going to bring my 4m down, just like I did my w. And now I distribute negative 3 times 2n, negative 6n, and negative 3 times 7, negative 21. Can we combine any like terms? Are there any like terms? No, so this is our final answer. Okay. All right, go ahead and do example 18. There should be a parenthesis at the end of that number. And then check your answer when you're done. Okay. Last two. So let's look at, I'm going to do example 20 with you, and then I'm going to have you do 19 on your own. Okay. So let's look at example 20. Can somebody raise your hand and tell me what our first step would be here? Noah? Yep. At the same time, you can distribute the negative 6 as well. Okay. So let's do both of those. Bring down your 3m and then distribute your positive 2. And then distribute your negative 6. If it's easier for you to distribute them separately, then do so. Once you're finished, I want you to identify any like terms, okay? And then I want you to combine those to your final answer, okay? Once you're finished with that, check my work. Make sure I did it right. Check your work, make sure you did it right. And then go ahead and do example 19 on your own. I will have the answer up here and I will finish off the video, but please do this on your own before you look up here for the answer. Okay? Mhm. I took 3m minus 24m. Mhm. Okay. So go ahead and check your answer for number 19, and that concludes lesson 1.5, properties of real numbers.